All right. Good morning. Let's go. Our TPA meeting for Thursday, June 26, 2025. If we could call roll to establish our quorum, please. Thank you, Ruth.
At this time, I'm only asking those board members attending in person to respond with "here" when I call your name. Alternates, please state your name if you're representing a TPA board representative. As a reminder, please press your microphone button once to turn on and off. Steve Wilson,
Here.
Yvette Drucker,
Mark Wigner on behalf of Yvette Drucker here.
Fran Nacklis,
Andy Thompson in her stead.
Amy Kelly,
Here.
Rob Long. I was excused. Susie Diaz,
Here.
Jim Koretsky,
Here.
Christopher McBoy, Joni Brinkman,
Here.
DeAndre Poole,
Here.
Greg Wise is excused. Marcy Woodward,
Here.
Sarah Baxter is excused. Joel Flores is excused. Bruce Guyton,
Here.
Jeff Hamara,
Here.
Michael Napoleon,
John McGovern for Michael Napoleon.
Christy Fox is excused. Joseph Paduzzi is excused. Maria Marino is excused. Chelsea Reed.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
All right, lovely. Do we have anyone who wants to, we have one more coming in right now. I see Mr. McBoy. Super. Do we have anyone who wants to participate remotely today?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, lovely. Let's move along. Could you please join me if you're able in the Pledge of Allegiance?
The flag, United States of America, to the republic, which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. Do we have any modifications to the agenda today?
No, Madam Chair.
Super. So since we have no modifications, I'm seeking a motion to adopt our agenda as is.
So move.
All right. So if you could say your last name when you make a motion, that'd be great. So who made the
Guidey.
motion?
So move.
All right. Thank you, sir. And do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. So we have Hamira for the second. All set? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes pass unanimously. Thanks so much. Just so you guys know, instructions on how to provide public comment are included in our agenda. Do we have any public comment to start with?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, super. So we'll move right into comments from the chair and our board. Let's get those cards up and chat. Mayor Wilson.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Just take a minute to recognize I have somebody in the audience to my left, this good-looking guy. He is the he's the vice mayor of the city of Belgrade, speak 5 different languages, but master one. He is the alternate for the Glades community. So when you don't see me from time to time, Mr. Commissioner, Vice Mayor Joaquin Amazon will be taking my place. Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you and welcome, Vice Mayor. Anyone else? Okay, lovely. Just always like to keep you guys posted on things that are going on as your chair. So tomorrow, our executive director and I will go to the CEFTech meeting, which is the Southeast Florida Transportation Council, Miami, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. We meet quarterly. Tomorrow is an exciting meeting. We've been working on the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan for a while. That's also been included in the newsletter and in emails. So if you guys have an opportunity to take a look at it, we'd really appreciate it because we like to think of ourselves as one traveling public. People don't always think about whether they're in Miami, Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach as they're moving along. So please take a look at that. It's available at 2050rtp.com. And so we have that. And then I think we'll be going to the MPOAC in about 2 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks. Yeah. So, and that's the Metropolitan Planning Association for all of Florida. So we'll keep you posted on how that's going. That's no other cards. So we'll move along to our executive director's report.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to some of our new members here and alternates. I wanted to share some exciting news. Last night, the 2025 Best Complete Streets Policies Report was published from Smart Growth America. They do this every 2 years where they rank all the complete streets policies that have been adopted in the last 2 years, so 2023 and 2024. Nationally, there was 43 policies adopted, and the city of Boca Raton was ranked number 5 as the 5th best complete streets policy adopted in the last 2 years nationally, and the only one in the top 10 in Florida. So congratulations to the city of Boca Raton. I know Councilmember Drucker and Deputy Mayor NACLIS are not here, but I want to thank them and also our members that are here from Boca Raton for your leadership. Council member, both Thompson and Woodger, thank you all for your leadership in adopting this policy and advancing complete streets mobility efforts in your community. So congratulations to Boca Raton. I also want to congratulate the Village of Wellington. I recently found out that they are the first in Palm Beach County to receive the designation from ARP, Age Friendly Network and Livable Communities. There's over 50, there's 53 in Florida, but nearly over 960 nationwide that have this designation. And it really looks at all the domains of being an age-friendly community, whether you're 8 or 80. So congratulations, Wellington, for being the first in our county. I hope more receive this designation. And I also want to mention that through the Livable Communities programs, they do have small grants, community challenge grants that can advance things like walking and biking, safety pilot projects and things like that. So it's a great program to look into. So congratulations. Also, we have the TPA has launched a new crash board. It was in our newsletter that we came out that was published this week, but this is an interactive crash board that you can see all the roadway fatalities and serious injuries in Palm Beach County and zoom into different areas and navigate through that. So thank you to our staff who worked really hard on that, but please check it out when you get a chance. It's also on our Vision Zero page. And speaking of that, we are working on finalizing an update to our Vision Zero action plan. We recently hosted a workshop on June 5th it had great participation, and those presentations are available online. We're also working on transit-oriented communities policy, and that's also going to be posted online soon. We had a workshop, and those materials are available online as well. And just a reminder, Bicycle Friendly America designations, which we're a bicycle friendly business, and there's a few here in Palm Beach County, but those designations, the deadlines, the one for community just passed yesterday, but we'll share when the next deadline is. And the next ones are coming up with businesses in October 30th and universities August 7th. So this is a great program to look into. It really highlights different strategies that you can do in your community or in your business to become more bicycle friendly for your employers, for your visitors. And today is the last day to apply for the Safe Streets for All grants. This round, there'll be one more round. So this has been really successful in our county. We've had multiple municipalities apply for this and receive grants to create Vision Zero action plans, to do pilot projects. So just keep an eye on that, and we look forward to continuing to support more municipalities to pursue this. And just a final reminder, we have resources for transportation planning on our website, and please sign up for our newsletter where we share resources and upcoming events if you haven't already. So thank you.
I was doing so well with the microphone, sorry. Any comments or questions today on the executive director's report? All right, I just want to pat Valerie on the back because I know for the Livable Communities designation, you've been talking to each of our board members for probably 5 years on this one.
I think we presented to Wellington, I don't know if it was 2017 or yeah, it's been a long time.
Maybe a decade,
Yeah.
double that. So congrats. Yeah, so we appreciate obviously Wellington coming on board for that and encourage everyone else to do so in time. All right, I don't see any cards up, so we'll move right along to our consent agenda. Do we have anything that would like to be removed from the consent agenda today? All right, seeing nothing, I'll need a motion in a second to approve our consent agenda.
Diaz, motion to approve.
Perfect, thank you. Second by Poole. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Right into our action items. Today, we're going to hear about adopting our fiscal year 26 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Program, which is our TIP. And we've got Andrew, our Deputy Director of Programming, to present on this. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. So this is only one action item for you today. It is the second reading of our Transportation Improvement Program for fiscal years 2026 to 2030. So this is the upcoming fiscal years, next 5. This starts on July 1st. So into next week, we'll be operating under this new TIP. This is one of our major core products that's seen most frequently by the governing board. So what is the Transportation Improvement Program? This is the list of products by phase and by federal and state funding source over the next 5 fiscal years. And so we're currently operating under 25 through 29. And again, that ends here on June 30th, and we'll start operating under this new one on July 1st. And so it's going to cover 26 through 30. Typically, for products that are coming into the plan, the phases are typically coming in an outer year. So the work program is really being stable throughout the production of projects. And what's really occurring for a new tip is the addition of new projects, new phases. And they typically occur in an outer year where there's more budget availability. And so that's typically called the new fifth year. And when it comes to products within the Transportation Improvement Program, really here at the Metropolitan Planning Organization, we coordinate federal and state investments. And so what you see in this tip is all the federal and state investments within our county. On this map on the right is showing the urban area boundary. So that urban area boundary, which encompasses most of our coastline and heads out westward, and then also in parts of the Glades communities. That's the urban area formula funds that we have direct prioritization over. But we do approve in this plan all federal and state investments within the county. And so when it comes to the products and phases in the work program, it's really about trying to maintain what I thought we'll call work program stability. And so it's trying to keep products programmed and on their production schedule. So products can have various phases and various levels of complexity. Some of the larger products may start with a whole feasibility or planning study. It then gets programmed. It might have to do an additional PD&E, product development environmental study. Then it heads into the design right away construction. So that process could be lengthy and it could span multiple years at a tip and even outside those 5 years. And then there might be some shorter range projects. For example, our Transportation Alternatives Program that we prioritize funds for. And these are smaller scale projects. And some of those don't require right away and they don't require a major feasibility study. So you might just see design in year 1 and then construction in year 3. So products throughout the plan are on different work program schedules, production cycles, and really what we're trying to do is continue those through the work program, through the Transportation Improvement Program, and then bringing in additional products as money becomes available. And so how we got to this second reading of the Transportation Improvement Program, it was seen last month by the committees and governing board. But really this starts a year in advance and we're always working towards the next Transportation Improvement Program. That's why we see it oftentimes the same priority lists multiple times throughout the year for the governing board. And so this time started back in winter, spring 2024. So we're looking at our long range transportation plan. We're also having our competitive application process with our Transportation Alternatives Program, which is those smaller non-motorized products that our cities apply for. Those are being vetted and ranked. And if they are ready to be produced, go to construction, they are then put into our list of priority products. So they get work program ready. We're ready to start getting those phases funded. And so that list of priority projects is adopted by the governing board. This one was adopted for July of 2024. It outlines those priorities using available revenue sources that we know of that the TPA has to prioritize. That list is then provided to FDOT to begin working on their new work program. And so what they're doing on that work program is really updating all the cost estimates for current projects. They're then rebalancing the work program, and then any of the new priorities by us or the state are then coming into the work program with available funds. It's presented to the governing board. It was seen in December of 2024 and endorsed by the TPA. And then they built the final work program off of that for the state. And that's what serves as the basis of the document you see today. And in this document that you're seeing today, there's $3.2 billion of federal, state, and turnpike investment within our county over the next 5 years. Large amount of federal, state, and turnpike funds. Major investment by the state in the turnpike on the strategic intermodal system. So this is what's called the SIS system, and this is the major roadways the state really operates and maintains and builds capacity for. So that includes I-95, Turnpike, Southern, Beeline Highway, US 27, so the major SIS facility. In this work program in the next 5 years, major investment by the Turnpike to widen the Turnpike throughout the county. And those are using Turnpike toll revenue credits. So Turnpike funds spent on the Turnpike. And then also on that SIS capacity is major infrastructure investments on a bunch of I-95 interchanges. Outside of those SIS capacity projects, there's the TPA priority projects. Again, that's the ones that we prioritize in our list of priority projects with federal and state funds. I'll get more into those in a minute. Then also in the tip, you'll see other federal and state funding projects. So ones that maybe aren't just capacity projects, but ones that might be minor safety improvements, other types of smaller scale projects go in that category. There's then the operations and maintenance of our roadways. That also includes signals, operation and maintenance of transit. So that's the PalmTran federal and state funds. And then there's airports, seaports, and railroads. For the TPA priorities, so those ones that come out of our list of priority projects, there's $388 million of federal and state investment towards these in the next 5 years. The major category here is the roadway capacity projects. So this is moving forward the State Road 7 widening and extension. And it's also moving forward the other portions of the Atlantic Avenue widenings. So both those major projects although they are widenings, they do encompass pedestrian bike facilities as well. Then there's the standalone complete streets products. These are these pedestrian bicycle facilities, a bunch of non-motorized user projects, $63 million in investment over the next 5 years. We then have both Boca Raton and Palm Beach County who maintain our signals. There's investments on signals and intersections that they've applied for. There's $53 million towards that. So that's infrastructure hardening for weather. It's also updating signals for future technologies. There's $32 million in transit vehicles and shelters. So that goes towards both PalmTran with building shelters. There's electric vehicles, and there's also money for Tri-Rail. And then lastly, just a standalone $4 million lighting and safety that is incorporated in other products that we have, but those are just smaller amount for standalone lighting and safety. So $388 million total for what the TPA has prioritized with the funds they have available to do that. So getting more into those priorities for those major products programs we have, the first is major products. So just showing updates about new projects or any major changes for the ones that are in the Transportation Improvement Program. The list is much larger than this. So in your backup was all of the products that are in this section. But products now funded, as I mentioned, that new fifth year, which is 2030, that's where the bulk of funds are available. And that's really when new products and phases start coming in. And so for major products, we had 5 new ones for construction put in the Transportation Improvement Program. That's a US 1 reconstruction from 25th to 45th, signal and Boca Raton at Federal Highway and Spanish River. And then we had multiple Palm Beach County signal products and Boca Raton signals within the program for fiscal year 2030. And then one other note for an acceleration is the PD&E for Indiantown Road at Central Boulevard, advancing to fiscal year 26. So that should be starting up here pretty soon. Next is local initiatives. So this is a program that we have had in the past where locals can apply for funds for priorities, all types of priorities coming into this. We've typically gotten a lot of complete streets projects that come through this program that the locals implement. But with this, multiple ones funded in fiscal year 30, again, Boca Raton traffic signals, 7th Street buffered bike lanes in West Palm Beach, Tri-Rail service rolling stock, more signals, Wellington Trace sidewalks and roundabout, and then additional signal products for Palm Beach County. On the right here is just a concept for the Wellington Trace product that is now for construction in fiscal year 30. And I wanted to point this out just because with every product that's coming into the work program that we're prioritizing, the Transportation Improvement Program that we're prioritizing, staff is receiving applications or working on studies ourselves to come up with initial concepts and initial cost estimates. And then we're doing field vetting with the locals, with FDOT and our staff, and going out and ensuring that the product is able to be built. And so when, for example, Wellington submitted this product, they received local support, they submitted design, cost estimates. So we're really trying to ensure the product is ready to go for production. And so that's happening for all these products that are being vetted getting into the work program. Next is the transportation alternatives. So this is a non-motorized competitive application process that we have. It's capped at $1.5 million per project. We had 3 submittals this past year, and they were ranked and programmed, and they are going to be constructed in fiscal year 28. So with those other ones where we talk about most of the money is available in an outer year, this smaller scale program that we have is a 3-year window. So next year, when these get programmed, after the approval here, they're going to go right to design by the locals and then be funded in fiscal year 28. So smaller scale ones for non-motorized users. We had Palm Street bicycle lanes, which is an example here on the right of a typical section that they submitted, and that's in West Palm Beach. There's a cycle track for Northwest 2nd Ave in Boca Raton, and then there's also bicycle lanes on Camino Real in Boca Raton. And then I mentioned earlier the major investments in the SIS system, the Strategic Intermodal System, $1.4 billion in turnpike capacity products. Again, that's widenings throughout the county. The sections coming up here in the near future or starting this year is around the West Palm Beach area heading north. And there's also $400 million in I-95 interchange products. And that's 16 ones that are either new or modified. They could be full-on interchange rebuilds, but some of them are maybe minor things for ramps and signals. Okay. Well, that was my overview of it and what's in this Transportation Improvement Program. Again, it was reviewed, open to the public from April 30th all the way to today, and that public period closes today, June 26th. Presented to the committees last month, and then here it is for final adoption.
Thank you, Andrew. All right, we have a couple of cards up, but before we go in, do we have any public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
All right, so first I saw Mayor Koretsky, then we'll have Peter Steve, and then Mayor Hamara.
Could you go back? Could
Go
you go back to the slides, the slide on major projects update?
I apologize, which slide?
Can you go back to the slide on major project update? I'm thrilled. Everybody that has a project up there is thrilled that you made that, and I mean this in the most sincere way. From lessons learned, the year rank, these are all priority projects?
Yes.
Okay, so we got priority projects dating back to 17, and they're funded in fiscal year 30. And then there's some in 20, and then we had one in Jupiter in 21, and we have a PD&E advanced. And I just mean this in the most sincere way, not for discussion here, but just to get conversation going. What can we, the big we, do different in the future to be more successful on projects that this board, has identified to be priority? Because that's really not a good, and again, I just would like to reach out after whatever. What could we do so the project we identify, it doesn't take so long, to make it in the queue and get funded?
I want to just point out that we have had more of a delay than usual when priority projects come in, both for local initiatives and major projects, because of the huge #1 project that is a TPA project, the State Road 7 project. It's so big, most of our funds are going to that, and because of the litigation, it was pushed out 5 years. Currently, it's on track, but that's what delayed everybody else, because it's #1 on our list and it's taking up most of the funds, as well as Atlantic Avenue is also a huge project. So Andrew, what was the number again? Can you go back the slide to the breakdown of
I think it's
the 388 million? So
236.
236, the 388 million is what the TPA gets to prioritize for the urban area state and formula funds on our priorities. And the state and the feds go down the list of #1 and down on project readiness, and obviously in the order of what they're going to fund with what we get to, what this board gets to prioritize. The other funds, as Andrew mentioned, it's a lot of money, but those are things that this board approves, but that we don't prioritize. Those are things that DOT is doing on their system, the Turnpike's doing, but these are our priorities. So in our list, with State Road 7 widening and extension being the #1 project, that's taking up a lot of those funds. If and when that project gets completed, things will start moving more on a normal schedule, which is usually 5 to 7 years. The new 50 years when money becomes available, or things are accelerated if possible. But Just wanted to point out in this particular case, some of these projects are further behind than what normally would be because of what's going on with that project.
And while I appreciate that, and because I've been here a long time, I understood that. I still think the big I'll reach out to FDOT. Still, these are not, the ones that were on the list weren't big dollars. So I still believe, and sometimes small projects can make a big difference. And so I still believe in hindsight's always 2020. We all agree in this room here. So I'm just saying, in hindsight, to me, I think it's an excuse if I was to say State Road 7 is the reason small projects can't get done. So I just want to make sure that we're just trying to see, could we, if we were to come up with something like that again, does that mean every other thing is held back? And just want to learn from it. That's all. I mean this positively, not in any negative way. I'm grateful. We're all grateful. We know how tough it's been, but nonetheless, because, there's few projects we put out as priority. There's a lot that are important nonetheless to us individually that are individual priorities. And when a TPA priority one gets delayed that much, I just think it's something we ought to understand. The big right? Is there something we could have done differently? And then we apply that, to new priority projects as they're emerging. But thank you. And then just a question on turnpike projects. Maybe it's my perception, but it seems like we don't see them as much as we do in FDOT1. And the question is, are they bound by the same noise impact standards on communities?
Yeah, I'm getting head nods from Turnpike.
Okay.
And well, is Turnpike here? Yeah, the James Brown Turnpike is here.
Because
Yes.
certainly the widening project may have impact on up and down the corridor on noise in neighborhoods and stuff. So I know FDOT has a good program for that. I just want to make sure. So thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Mayor Wilson put his card down, so we'll move on to Mayor Hamara and then Councilmember McFoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I see signals up there. I saw signals up there a lot. Are there any particular initiatives that really look to be integrating emerging kinds of technologies with the impact that has the potential of insofar as efficiencies and flow and all of that kind of thing? I would hope the answer is yes. And if you could give some examples, that'd be great.
I don't have the details specifically off the top of my head when it comes to these signal products. I do know that a lot of this information, the signal infrastructure that we're putting forward here are ones to like bring it up to better standards for the infrastructure that's out there so it can be better utilized for that type of technology, right? So it might be the strain poles that go across the intersection with their load-bearing weight, it's hardening of the poles, making them ADA compliant, and then it's also updating the boxes there to accommodate that type of technology. But specifically for the type of things we're doing innovatively, I know we already have an active arterial management system that is, maintaining the flows on our major corridors, and there are some other pilots going on right now along Okeechobee, for example, that's out for procurement for some type of advanced technology. But specifics on that, I'd have to get back to you unless we have other responses there.
Yeah, our understanding, and this would obviously be a question for the city of Boca Raton and Palm Beach County who have applied to us, but is that they are updating all the funds that they're asking for signal technology updates, including hardening, but is for more smarter technologies are included as part of that. But the specifics of that would be their engineers who control it.
And one follow-up, I apologize, is that through this, one of the counties' initiative for the innovative technology, their consultant has also, I think, is going to do a Board of County Commissioner workshop on this sometime soon, is what was stated by engineering to us. So we'll be on the lookout for that as well.
Okay. Well, it sounds like maybe some of the municipalities are actually providing some good examples of how we might be able to, the county may be able to adopt and the impact there collectively is a really important thing. So I was just curious about the details of that. I'm anxious to know more about that workshop you just mentioned, because I think we're sadly behind in the area of the application of technology to traffic management. And so anything we can do in that area, which includes county going to school on us. Interesting kind of an idea. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll have Commissioner McFoy.
Thank you. I would second the recent comment from Mayor Amara there that in terms of energy use, in terms of cost, the cost of adding smarts and programming those smarts to make transportation both more efficient and perhaps in some cases to accommodate alternate forms of transportation. I remember reading about Copenhagen that in Denmark that coordinates their bicycle traffic such that it gets priority and safety is increased on it. So it fits with Vision Zero, complete streets, all of those things. I would certainly encourage us to, it's nice to do the hardening, but the smarts has got a lot more return on investment, I think. That wasn't my main comment. Is it possible, I'm looking at the executive summary, there's a page, I think in mine it's 4 of the, it's just an overview of these same sorts of categories, SIS, Turnpike, major project, local initiatives, and the money percentages. Is that possible to pull up? And I would, as that, and is pulling that up,
I have the graph here, but you're in the,
I'm on a table.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I can mention the numbers. I know that the TPA is very strong and has a long history of that. And we as a board, I think, have been pretty supportive of alternative transportation, thinking about, not just cars, but a lot of other forms that are pretty important and that have safety issues, that have economic implications for families if they can get around other ways. And it just concerns me that the transportation alternatives is 0.5% of the total budget. It's like nothing. I mean, billions going to other things, and I recognize that we don't have any control over how much the Turnpike spends, but we really need to crank up those numbers. And even if you add in the local initiatives, that's 2%. So we're up to 2.5% on things that influence at the local level that are focused on things other than cars. And that, I think we all recognize, I think the staff here certainly recognizes that. My question, sort of in the spirit of Jim's, would be, what can we as a board do differently to try to help shift that a little more?
So Andrew, can you go to the next slide? So the Transportation Alternatives Program, unfortunately, those are formula funds from the federal government, and the $5 million a year is what we get for those non-motorized, which are great because they are on or off system, which means that they not only can be on a roadway, but they can be on a public right-of-way. So in Green Acres, for example, we funded the Dillman Trail. That wasn't but it connects a park and a school and neighborhoods. So that's something that we encourage our municipalities to apply for every year. As you saw on the table, we only got 3, 2 from Boca and 1 from West Palm. So we want more of our municipalities to apply for that. When it comes to this breakdown here, the funds that we prioritize are Federal Highway Administration surface transportation funds for the majority. But as you can see, even the roadway capacity projects, as we mentioned, most of them, we have these big projects that have been on our list for a long time and that they're at the top, which is State Road 7 and Atlantic Avenue. But we are pushing, and DOT's also has, complete streets policy to incorporate pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements to the point that the Atlantic Avenue widening is going to be the first Zikla or kind of armadillo separators that they're piloting on that. In addition to the wide sidewalks, they're going to be piloting separated bike lanes as part of that. So even though you see that it's roads, they are including those pedestrian bicycle facilities. And as you can see, 63 million for just complete streets improvements. Now, what can the local municipalities do to answer both Mayor Koretsky and your question is So I mentioned earlier that City of Boca Raton was ranked number 5 in the country for complete streets policies. We have 7 municipalities who have adopted a complete streets policy in this county. We have 39 municipalities. If all of our municipalities adopt complete streets policies, that means that every time they approve a development, doesn't matter if it's a neighborhood Walmart or whatever, they're making sure that those sidewalks are connected, that the bike facilities are there. They're asking the developer, make sure they're thinking about that at all staff levels. Mayor Hamauer and I, yesterday in our agenda review, we were talking about this, but so for example, a couple of years ago, they applied to us for a transportation alternatives program grant that was to connect the sidewalks in a neighborhood in Royal Palm Beach. So the developer had created sidewalks, but they were all circles that didn't connect. So if a mom was with a baby stroller or a dad or a wheelchair, that person would have to get into the grass and into the street to cross to the next sidewalk. So our grant funded just the ADA ramps and all those connections so people could actually walk or go or roll whatever somewhere. So if a local municipality has a policy for this, that means that when the planner, when the engineer, when whoever is approving these plans, they're saying, wait a minute, are you connecting the facilities? Are you including the facilities? West Palm Beach has a complete streets policy, but for example, when the Kravis Center was redeveloped, they asked the Kravis Center do a shared use path cycle track as part of this redevelopment. So what can our local municipalities do? One is adopt a complete streets policy, which we have a template, which Boca, Delray, and others have used. Wellington, Delray Beach, and Boca Raton have all been ranked in the last few years in the top 10. So that's really exciting. So we are here as a resource to help you for that. But to Mayor Koretsky's point, and this is something we'll talk about at our next meeting, we're planning to start a new annual call for projects application process, which is going to be feeding into basically like updating, keeping our long range transportation plan, which we're required to adopt every 4 years, keeping that live. So all the projects that we got through the call for projects and ranking them per the performance measures of the federal government that we're supposed to follow, the ones that are ranking the highest, we're going to ask those municipalities, are you ready to go? Do you know how much this costs? Does your engineer know how much this costs? Is it doable? Is it within the right of way? And if local municipalities have more details ready to go, that means that your project might be ready to go if money becomes available, or maybe we can move it up. To Mayor Koretsky's point, yes, we have these small grant program like the transportation alternatives the construction is in year 3. But at a larger scale, if you're in the list, when the money becomes available or something falls through, DOT goes down the list in order of the priorities. And if someone's ready to go, then that moves forward.
So to clarify, the action items for our county and for all 39 municipalities, to the points of both Mayor Koretsky and Commissioner McVoy, is number 1, realize that the formula funds for I know there was a lot of acronyms in the TPA, and I'm apologizing for that right away, right? But you've got your LI and your TA, right? These are grants that the TPA has a minimal amount of money to give, and we're not getting applications for it. So as much as we might shake our fists and say we need to do more for transportation alternatives, if your municipality or your county isn't applying for them, then shame on you, right? So the TPA has these resources available. Was it 2 years ago? We barely had any applications, and some years we have more, but that's up to you guys taking a look. And simply, so the 2 action items are adopting the complete streets, right? And then number 2, actually applying for the grants. There's outreach ahead of each time where the TPA educates staff and assists staff in the application process. And then it's a competitive grant. Taking off the TPA hat, City of Palm Beach Gardens, we've received a couple of these. We're about to put in separated bike lanes all the way up and down Burns Road Community Center between our City Hall and our new Recreation Center, right where it should be. And so it's going to change lives and save lives. So we should all be doing that. So that would be my call to action for everybody is, there may not be a lot of money there, but if we're not applying for it, then it's just sitting there not getting utilized. Mayor Wilson, sorry.
Madam Chair, I agree with that concept. But let's go back on State Road 7. I mean, it's been out there for a long, long, long time. So my question to you guys, the funding that was allocated for that project to start, could we have used that same concept to put aside because litigation was taking so long? Or was it designed just for that particular? Because I'm a little confused because I thought that those funding, and it's not, you're saying?
So this happened recently. You guys might recall that the programming for State Road 7 was in the outer years. And then when it came up for construction, like the current year that it was in 23 was a year that we had a ton of applications for local initiatives and we had to put them all on hold. And that's why they're just now getting funded because the department had to, you have to use the funds in the year that they're in. So the funding basically had to get moved and then funds became available for other projects, but those outer funds got taken up by State Road 7 and the local initiatives folks that had applied to get funding in the new fifth outer year are slowly getting funded now, and it's a little more delayed of what they would have hoped. So that's why we saw some of the applications of people who applied in 2020 are now getting funding, but they're in the list in line. So we do have our project manager from FDOT from State Road 7 if we have specific questions of that. But basically, it delayed projects in the work program.
And all the litigations on that project is complete?
The litigation is moving forward, and it's expected to be on track and to move forward. But
So it could be another couple of years before that's finished, right?
yes, and it's in the work program. So you will see, but we're expecting, DOT is expecting it to be used now in the years that it is in. So
Yeah.
28, 29, 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not fighting against the grant here. All I'm saying that the funding that we're putting towards that project, it's another 4 or 5 years to complete the litigation. In my mind, it look like that we can utilize that for something else, local projects and all. But
Sure.
it's just,
For the project, so the litigation is expected to be complete by the time the project is funded currently in the work program.
that's what you
But
projected.
like, for example, if that project were not in the 5-year work program, DOT wouldn't be spending money on it. So it needs to be in there. If for some reason the project were to get canceled or go away, that funding would now come down to everybody who's in line. And to Mayor Koretsky's point, like be ready if something like that happens, not just that project, but other things that might get, if for some reason they unexpectedly get canceled, which is not good for the work program stability. But that's when other ones that are next in line that comes down. But if they're not ready to go, then it goes to who else isn't ready to go? Because it has to be used in the year that it's programmed.
Good question. Anyone else have a card, a question or otherwise? Thank you, Andrew. Oh, so sorry. Okay, Mayor Hamara.
So I can't resist. So you gave kind of an update on State Road 7. It still sounds contingent upon. Is there any
Scott?
hope that we'll get out of this contingency mode?
Well, let's get a quick project update since he came all the way up here, and just in case we had a question. Thank you.
Scott Peterson, FDOT, project manager for that project. So what happened recently was the hearing concluded that the judge sided with DOT and recommends to South Florida Water Management that they issue the permit. South Florida Water Management is expected to make a decision. We believe they will issue the permit within the next 10 days. At that point, the city may choose to appeal. I don't know what the city's going to do, but regardless of whether they appeal or not, our funding is sitting in 28 and 29. The appeals process is likely to take a year. That appeals process will be finished before we get to 28 or 29 anyway. So the department's not slowing down on preparing for 28 or 29. If the city were to win the appeal and the project were to suffer a legal setback, then obviously we would have to reassess. But right now, the current legal process playing out is not delaying us. We're not on hold. We're not waiting for that to play out to continue our plan towards fiscal year 28.
Okay, well,
That cleared up.
yeah, that's helpful. And especially in light of, I didn't realize the impact it was having on everything else. And so the value of getting that started and actually moving is even greater to me now than it was before. So hopefully the idea that DOT is going forward with this thing is really, really powerful. So thank you.
All right, I see Mayor Koretsky's card.
Follow-up question to the project manager. If in 10 days, the city, which we all hope, accepts the final decision, you've indicated since it's not funded until 28, 29, there's enough time if they appeal or whatever, but what if everybody finally accepted time to do it? Is there a way to move it up?
I don't think so. Only because that amount of money to move into an earlier year is a heavy lift, and I can't say
Yeah,
for certain, but I don't.
Everything that all of your projects that are currently being funded in the work program in the next between now and fiscal year 28, which is just 2 years, that for State Road 7 to move up it would mean pushing other people out of the way, which are already very far along in their processes of design and construction. So for everyone, fiscal year 28 is not that far away because starting next week, we're in fiscal year 26. So it's 2 years away.
And again, going to the slide that was, again, personally my favorite slide, when it talks about roadway projects, as much as we wish we could just, wiggle our nose like in Bewitched and make a road happen or a sidewalk, it unfortunately does take years. And we've all gotten a lesson in financing. And, this is something that we look at every year as we approve our different entity mechanisms that we utilize for funding. So any other questions, any other public comments come through or anything else like that? All right, on a silly note, I have to say, thank you so much for the color coding and the shading on the tip this year. It was great. Having the outer year in that light gray was wonderful for me. So I don't know about you guys, but when you're looking at that many numbers and that many projects, it's a little bit of color coding always helps. So thank you. All right, we're looking for a motion and a second to approve the fiscal year 26 to 30 Transportation Improvement Program or TIP. If you could state your name when you make your motion. Thank you, sir.
Second McGovern.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. We're going to move along to an information item, which is our TPA Governing Board member training. We're going to have Andrew present on this item, which personally I'm very, very excited about. So I want to first of all thank all of our alternates that came today. I know we have Florida Association of Counties happening, as well as a couple of other meetings, but this is a great time to show up because we want to make sure that the training is shared. This will be available on video and YouTube afterwards as well. So we encourage
Madam Chair.
everybody. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
I think by statute, we're required to do roll call with the.
I think you went so fast. We didn't tell you. Yep, yes.
What do we need to do?
We'll just need a roll call.
Oh, roll call? Oh, I apologize. I didn't see that. My fault. Can we go back, guys? I apologize. If the person who made the motion and the second for our action item, which is fiscal year 26 to 30 Transportation Improvement Program, please make their motions again.
All right. Steve Wilson for the record,
Thank you.
make the motion. John McGovern, second.
Staff, could we have a roll call vote, please? Thank you.
Okay, Steve Wilson,
Aye.
Mark Whitger,
Aye.
Andy Thompson,
Yes.
Amy Kelly,
Yes.
Rob Long is excused, Susie Diaz,
Yes.
Jim Koretsky,
Yes.
Christopher McBoy, Joni Brinkman,
Yes.
DeAndre Poole,
Yes.
Greg Wise is excused, Marcy Woodward,
Yes.
Sarah Baxter is excused, Joel Flores is excused, Bruce Guyton,
Yes.
Jeff Hamara,
Yes.
John McGovern,
Yes.
Christy Fox is excused, Joseph Paduzzi is excused, Maria Marino is excused, Chelsea Reed.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you, Milton. So nonetheless, let's go. This is exciting. We're moving on to this information item, which is our member training. Thank you, sir.
Apologize about that. Thank you. Okay, so this is a board member training. This was one of the strategic plan items that we had this past fiscal year to do an annual training, not only for our board members, but also for our committees, because we have new members and there's always updated information to provide. And so in this training, I want to try to make it brief for you. It's going to cover basically what our history as a metropolitan planning organization and sort of what we do here as a TPA. So we, at the TPA, we plan, prioritize, and fund federal and state transportation projects, and made up of a governing board of you all, 21 locally elected officials. We have our 3 advisory committees and 14 staff, and our vision, a safe, efficient, and connected multimodal transportation system. And so we are what is known as a metropolitan planning organization. There's 400 plus of these mandated throughout the United States. And so we're a federally mandated agency for all urbanized areas with a population of 50,000 plus. Us here, we're in the Southeast Florida urbanized area, covering Broward, Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach. And we, again, plan and prioritize those federal and state funds. And particularly for MPOs, they fund the urban area and products mostly on the federal aid eligible system. So those are the roadways that are urban minor collector and above. And so this is the same map you saw in the Transportation Improvement Program slide, but wanted to point out again, those urban area boundaries. And then we have our national highway system roadways, and then the surface transportation eligible roadways. So that encompasses all the ones that are federal aid eligible. We also set forward a 25-year transportation vision. And then to wrap it all in, what we're really here for is the public participation and stakeholder engagement when it comes to these metropolitan transportation decision-making. And so that public engagement and the stakeholder collaboration is really at the core of what we do as an agency. It's in our mission. It's the first word: collaboratively plan, prioritize, and fund transportation. And that's really what the roots of an MPO started as. So going back in history, how we were created, the Eisenhower administration put forth the largest infrastructure investment in the history of our nation, the interstate highway system. And so that was moving forward with the interstate system. And it was really a top-down approach about how that was going to be rolled out. And because of that, there was not much local decision-making in that process. And so it was coming through, and there was dividing communities. It also brought traffic to the interstate, which moved, traffic off of US 1 and those other businesses there. So wasn't a lot of stakeholder engagement at that level. And so this really sparked a lot of push from a local say in this process. And that's really what happened with the 1962 Federal Aid Highway Act, where it required them to start looking at metropolitan planning as a whole. And then in 1973, it was required to have a metropolitan planning organization. After that, we had our first governing board meeting in 1977 and adopted our year 2000 plan, looking towards the future. And then since then, we've had multiple other federal acts that have come out every few years that have really changed maybe the requirements we have as an agency with congestion management, performance measures, what we should be considering in the planning process, all the way up to our current IIJA Act, and then reauthorizations coming up next year. But the core of what we do is really going back to collaboration and going back to that original purpose. And so our structure here and how we sort of work with the other entities, starting at the federal level, we have the US DOT, and then we particularly work with the Federal Highway Administration and the Federal Transit Administration. So those federal funds that we receive for our planning activities and also what we prioritize towards projects are coming out of these two pots, US DOT with the FHWA and then also FTA. At the state level, we have DOT, and then we've mentioned here with our regional partners within the Miami metro area, we have Miami-Dade, ourselves, and Broward, making up the Southeast Florida Transportation Council. And then at the local level, we all have our local agencies, our public input, and our advisory committees. Our area here is Palm Beach County, 39 municipalities. We don't own or operate anything. As an agency, we're a collaborative body that brings in all of these different decision makers. So the ones who own the roadways, we have our county and FDOT, are the ones who maintain and operate the majority of those federal aid eligible roadways within our county. But we also are collaborating with multiple partners throughout for all transportation types. So we have the Port of Palm Beach on our board, but we also have Palm Tran, the airports, and then also our private providers for transit and Tri-Rail. Governing board, 21 elected officials. Here's all your photos. And with the governing board, what your real purpose is here and how it's structured, right? So you're the ones who are approving those federally required MPO plans and programs. And that's really where the teeth of the agency comes to, right? So it's the approval of all federal and state funds that are going to be spent here within Palm Beach County. The structure of what an MPO must include is 75% of the affected population, and it must include local elected officials, officials from major modes of transportation, such as the Port of Palm Beach, and then appropriate state officials. So also on this board as a non-voting advisory is FDOT. And then there's the TPA advisory committees and also our Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board. So we have 3 advisory committees. The first is our technical one that is required by statute. This is planners and engineers, and also the school boards on this one, and then all other transportation providers. We have a citizens lens through our CAC, another required MPO committee. And then one that's not required is the Vision Zero Advisory Committee. So with our focus on Vision Zero, so 0 fatalities and serious injuries and safety, we have one that is specifically towards that and is really advocating and looking and designed for our most vulnerable users, pedestrian bicycle safety. And then also another part that we serve here specifically for the TPA is the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board. We receive some state funds to evaluate and plan the local paratransit service with PalmTran. Our Chelsea Reed serves as the chair of that committee. That meets quarterly here in this office. And then just wanted to make a note that we do have all this information in our handbooks on all the websites for our committees, and that these committees also operate under the same Florida Sunshine laws as yourselves. Core products, Unified Plan of Work Program, LRTP, TIP, and public participation are the ones that I wanted to discuss. And again, all 400 of us throughout the United States have these documents. Yes.
Andrew, I just wanted to just point in, we are funded through a grant from the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration. Our primary funding of how we operate and how we exist for our studies, for our staff time and all that. It's the 2-year grant that you're going to mention, but these are our core deliverables that we have to submit to the state and the feds for that grant. So.
And that first one, the Unified Plan and Work Program, going off what Valerie's saying, is our 2-year federal MPO planning grant. So those federal funds that we receive from both FHWA and FTA are for planning activities are put into this grant, and it really outlines how we're going to accomplish all those requirements with these core products and everything else we do in the transportation planning process over the next 2 years. So in this one, it has the tasks and identifies the budget and funding sources, if staff or consultants are going to do it, what are those deliverables and completion dates. And so this is our formal request really to FHWA and FTA on how we're going to spend the money. It gets approved. And then once that is approved and we're operating under that budget, we can start doing those activities, and then we work on a reimbursement basis to receive those funds. So do the work, and then we ask monthly for those reimbursements. Also to note on that, to expand off what Valerie was saying, is that we are also certified, go through a certification process with both the feds and the state. Our state one happens every year. So FDOT District 4 and Central Office are certifying us with review, and there's particular things they look through year to year with all the things in here in our finances and our plan activities. And then we have one at the federal level where they come every 4 years. So FHWA and FTA come every 4 years and dive deeper into our activities as an MPO and certify us then. Our long-range transportation plan, one of our core products, 25-year planning horizon. We update this every 5 years. This really sets forth our vision into the future and incorporates all the federal requirements we're required to incorporate, which includes performance measures. And it's really our forecast of growth and development into the future and what are the demands for all the types of modes we see into the future. Once we have that, we also have a federal and state funding forecast. And we approve all those products within the plan in our cost feasible plan. So every product that you see in the tip in some form is mentioned in the LRTP. It could be a line item if it's a larger product, or it might be just an operational and maintenance budget line, but they're all meant to be coming out of the LRTP. Tip, we just went through this one that you just adopted a moment ago. Again, the list of priority projects that really comes from the LRTP to the LPP to the tip. And it's really consistent with the FDOT work program. So one thing I wanted to mention on this one, because we've already talked about a lot of it, is when you approve this tip, just like our unified planning work program, now there's authority for them to go out and start doing those activities and then to get reimbursed, right? So when the feds see a project and FDOT's going to seek to do activities on this, they're going to look at our tip and make sure that the funding that they're asking for is there. And if it doesn't align correctly, FDOT has come back to us and either do an amendment or administrative modification. So that's really how it plays out on that level. So like it has to be consistent for them to move forward. And then lastly, a core product we want to mention, our public participation plan, also required for all MPOs. And with this, it really sets forth how we are going to do the public participation for all these planning activities. So the LRTP, the TIP, and everything else we do. We typically update this as needed, but we really do a bigger refresh right before the LRTP, since it's such a large 2-year process. If there's anything more innovative or how we want to switch this around, we'll typically do a larger look at that time. Okay, and then regional coordination, we're almost there. Southeast Florida Transportation Council, our meeting is coming up here tomorrow. And this coordinated effort between the 3 MPOs and then our other transportation partners is really trying to move forward a vision as a region. And so our travel demand modeling is done as a region together. And then in this one really sets forward a lot of policy decision-making that we want to push forward as a region. So what is going to be in this 2050 plan is really a highlight of what's coming out of all of our LRTPs that we just adopted. And it's bringing that together, seeing that unified sort of outlook for our 3 counties and where we're going to head into the future. And then what sort of policy should we be pushing, not just for our region, but at the state and federal level. Okay. And we are growing as a region, continue to grow. Here's some more recent projections from 2024 about where we're going to grow in our 3 counties. Going to be adding 33,000 people every year within our 3-county area, over 1 million people going forward into 2050. Over 7 million total. And then state and federal transportation funding. Again, we look over the federal and state funds. So what you see in the TIP and our LRTP are really approving those funds. And then there's local funds that obviously are a large part of the transportation system as well. And we try to keep track of how that money is being spent, but it's not something we directly approve. All 3 of these categories for where those fundings come from, mainly coming from gas taxes. And then with that, also I wanted to mention at the federal level, just a very small point is, maybe a larger point. We all know that fuel efficiency is increasing, right? So cars are more fuel efficient. We have more electric vehicles and cost of transportation is going up. So that fuel tax, there's always been a lot of conversations about the amount of revenue coming out of just having these federal sources and how are we going to look at for alternatives moving forward for different revenue sources. A stopgap about how they sort of fund it right now is general revenue. So they pull a lot of general revenue, more and more every few years to fill that void that's coming from more fuel efficiency and a lack of other sources. That same thing is really happening at the state and local level to some degree, but it's a larger concern at the federal level. This is the graph I showed last presentation about how we develop projects going from local product development and LRTP, heading through the list of priority projects, it gets to the draft 10 work program, and then the TIP. Okay. And last point in this one for the life cycle of a project, again, multiple phases, always looking for ways to advance some of these when it's possible, but based on the complexity of the products, you can go from planning all the way through to design, right-of-way construction. Okay, that was my overview. For that, we do have a lot of resources on our website. I know that our director has probably briefed you on many of these if you're having your one-on-ones with her. Some great resources on there. TPA mapping has a bunch of transportation resources. We keep our TIP products, our LTP products on that. You can also zoom into your community and look at those. We have community profiles, walk bike audits with local municipalities and FDOT and county and city roadway owners. So lots of ways to get involved outside of just this specific committee or board we have. And those resources are online, newsletters and events that we always host. And really, I think that's it. So any questions or anything else you'd like to add?
All right, before we dig into our board, do we have any public comment or questions?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I see Councilmember Guyton has your card up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question out of curiosity, and this may have been answered before I got on the board. With the cutbacks at the current federal level, with the current federal administration doing a lot of cutbacks, has the NPO funding been impacted by any of those cutbacks?
Yes. Well, when we two things I'd say there, and then Valerie, if you want to add on too. So we do have our partners at like the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. So if there's cutbacks in that way, there might be a slowdown like in the review process and reimbursement process. It really hasn't impacted us at this time for any of those things. And then when it comes to other cutbacks, specifically when it comes to transportation funding, the new federal bill is up next year. So we'll see if they've switched how formula funds are done or all that. So that's really upcoming in discussions. But specifically for our current bill, the funds that we know about that have been cut back, at least from the state level, is we sent back our carbon reduction funds at the state. So our formula funds are those TA funds, those, we're going to call them local initiatives, but they're surface transportation funds that we use. There was another pot of money called carbon reduction that was also formula funds to us. That was cut back and sent back to the federal government at a statewide level. Our district was able to balance those out with other funds, so there was no impact to our projects. But I think it was probably around maybe $3 million a year or so that hits us.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention too. We're currently operating under already an authorized grant for our operations. We're in the middle of that 2-year grant. We're currently operating, all the funds that we're prioritizing are under the current act of the IIJA. So it hasn't, our core funding that we prioritize hasn't been impacted. The carbon reduction funds was a new thing that the previous administration had sent down to the state, and it wasn't that much, but that did get canceled kind of last minute. But it was basically small amounts of funding that had been added to some projects for ped bike improvements, and the state was able to rebalance and fill in those holes. So nobody was impacted because of that. However, we will see what happens with the new reauthorization, the next act that happens next year, and then we'll know more.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And there is the AMPO, which is a wonderful resource for finding out more information, what's happening at the national level for all 400 MPOs. If you and that is always shared by our TPA as well. So it's a good place to keep your finger on the pulse of those changes as they're happening. And they are working with the legislators in DC about that actively. Any other cards or questions? That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that'll be helpful for all of our board and all of our alternates and our advisory committees. The only thing I wanted to add is I think sometimes the moniker Transportation Planning Agency has us step into puddles occasionally because we're a DBA as Palm Beach TPA, whereas a lot of the MPOs throughout the country are called MPOs, so it's a Metropolitan Planning Organization. So when people hear the word transportation, they think that you're this board or people who are involved in the TPA have a magic wand when it comes to changing things in transportation. But so, you know, again, the important things are Metropolitan Planning Organization, urbanized area, federal and state funds, and then the work products. And that really encapsulates it. So that will help our board as you field questions from residents or requests, that, why aren't you able to go build a bridge in my backyard tomorrow? There's a whole story behind it. And that was part of why we wanted to make sure we had this. So anything else, Mayor Hamara?
Yeah, that last comment about understanding the context in which we operate and what's achievable. That timeline that shows the years that it takes to move a project from inception all the way through to completion. That's a great one. It's as we talk to people, I think that would help help them understand why it takes so long to make these improvements happen and that kind of thing. And of course, we're in an exciting time as far as I'm concerned right now. The county just approved a countywide transportation master plan initiative, and looking for a bright spot in the closure of North Lake. We're going to experience a lot of things that hopefully will give us even more basis for pointing to the improvement of our transportation planning activity, and it warrants the attention and the continued involvement of everybody in this process. You shut down a major road like that, you got people's attention. So we probably don't want to miss the opportunity to make the point at this time. So thank you.
All right. Great job, Andrew. Thank you so much for all of your presentations today. Nice. All right, we'll move right along. Do we have any other partner agency updates today? We want to thank FDOT for coming as well. Anyone else? No? All right. So do we have any public comments regarding any partner presentations that we did not have?
Madam Chair.
Okay, lovely. So just a couple of administrative items. If anyone has any questions about those, do take a look at your calendars. Our next meeting will be on July 17th. We appreciate everyone's changing their calendar for this, as well as our alternates coming today. Please look ahead for the rest of the year. We have September 18th, October 30th, and December 11th. Those are all available on the TPA board website, Board of Governors website. So you're welcome to see those anytime you want. And I see no other cards up. So I will see everybody on the 17th. And at this time, this meeting is adjourned.